How you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm excited. Like I was telling you earlier, I try to do the best to theme up
Yeah,
for our discussion.
I
Closest I can get to Brad Pitt's shirt because I enjoyed that little.
that's
I like that
cool.
shirt. It was like a
That's
little like
cool.
chill Hawaiian little.
Yeah, you know what? Like during when I do start drinking a beer, the beer intermission, I can run up and I think I can outdo you.
Okay.
I got a
Okay.
bowling
Whoa.
shirt.
Whoa.
Um, so we
Ooh.
were talking before. Um, let's just we would be remiss if we didn't say
Okay. So
something about the Oscars, but
okay.
we're
So at the
not
time
gonna.
of this recording, yeah, we want to mention that because we're not sure when this is gonna
It doesn't
go up. It's
matter.
gonna be after
They'll
this,
just
but
know when everybody's tuning in that
this is
you know
recorded right after
right after
the
the
2022 Oscars premiered, and nobody watched them.
we're not playing to the camera, by the way. We're playing to each other. So stop
I'm
looking
gonna
at the
play the
fucking
camera. I
camera.
found one.
All right.
Oh,
One
look.
quick couple lines about what you thought.
That was shit.
Well, what was your?
Like I said, I didn't even watch them.
I
I've
know,
just been
but
watching the highlights.
will you address what we were talking? Like,
Oh, okay. Everybody's talking about the Will Smith smacking Chris Rock about the tamest of jokes he made about his wife's hair.
correct. I know, but what did it piss you off? Did I?
Yeah, not to the extent of like I was punching my screen. I was like, show a little class. I was like, you could have talked to him after the show and been like, hey man, we didn't appreciate the joke. My wife's going through a medical condition. Who knows if Chris Rock knew or not? He was just doing like um, that kind of comedy where you
Exactly.
observing comedy kind of thing.
My
And he wasn't even like, you know what I mean? It was a joke. He wasn't serious about it.
and he was doing his job. Chris
Yeah.
Rock was doing his job, and this is what pisses me off. Be professional.
Yeah.
Will Smith, be professional. Like you totally that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And what pisses me off is Chris Rock is there to entertain, which the whole Oscars is rewarding or grading people on their ability to entertain. The just emotional basket casery of Will Smith to do that, like it really pissed me
Oh,
off.
and there's a lot with that.
So
Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
freedom of speech. Like he
Yeah.
just trashed freedom of speech.
Yeah.
He trashed being a professional.
Yeah.
He trashed a fellow professional
Yeah.
who is there to do his job. And if that kind of joke makes you that upset or that's going to be your reaction, you need to seek help, dude. Like that I was pissed. And that's all I want
Yeah.
that's all I want to say. And I don't think that there should be any free pass. I think he should be called out on it. And I'm so sick of
Hey.
I'm so sick of these fake apologies.
Yeah.
I thought his whatever apology was genuine to the Academy,
Yeah.
but it certainly wasn't to Chris Rock,
No.
and that's the person that should get it. And yes, and I'll just say one last thing, and then I'll shut up. It's what everybody else said. What about all the other participants and all the other people that won that night? He totally clipped all that. He's
Yeah.
like.
Here's the thing, because we live in this 2022 day and age, and everybody gets so offended about everything. I just can't believe it was a G.I. Jane 1990s joke.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even that. Like, you can see the clip where initially he's laughing, his wife's not. But I'm like, again, whatever. Address it after the show. Be professional. Like I
Right.
said, Chris Rock took it like a champ.
Yeah,
Continued to
he
roll with
absolutely
it.
did. Like,
Good for
talk
him.
about professional actor.
Exactly.
It's rolling. Keep moving.
But here, I want to play devil's advocate with this because, again, because of the day and age we live in. What if any of those change the race of one of those two men?
I'm not getting
Yes,
that.
do it.
I'm
Do
not
it.
touching it.
Do it.
I'm not touching it.
I'm just saying.
It is.
I'm just saying.
You know, I'm so sick of like too much emphasis on race in general.
I am too.
I
I
think-
think a lot of people are.
Humanity in this day and age we are humanity, and that's the most non-racist thing that I can say, and that and I genuinely feel we're all human beings.
Exactly.
Let's just treat each other like human beings. And I don't know if he got a pass because of the color of his skin, but Chris Rock is also an African American, so it's like it's just ridiculous. But I'm not even touching. I don't even want to say, and I'm talking about professionalism and control your emotions. You said it. Say something after. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. Let's talk about something fun.
That was actually good and fun.
So you agree it was good?
Yeah, I told you.
I figured you had fucking Tarantino.
Yeah. All right,
man.
Yeah, let's get into the actual thing that we're going to talk about.
Go ahead.
We're talking about Tarantino's latest, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I can't believe it's been 2 years since it released.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
I literally thought it was like a year ago, maybe even less.
Yeah. I felt like it was less than a year. I saw it in the theater, and it was wonderful. And it kind of bummed me out that I rewatched it obviously for Film Dicks for our show, and it took a little away from the experience for sure. But Tarantino's such a master, and there's so much going on in story, and even the way he filmed it cinematically that I still got lost in the story, but. It was wonderful to see it in the theater, and I want to see it in the theater again so bad. So, how do you want to?
Let's just get into it.
Okay.
I mean, if we're gonna glaze over just like the plot or the story, it's very simple. It basically just follows this aging actor, who, because of a couple years prior, maybe a little bit longer, he had an accident, and he's not as capable of, I guess, in terms of stunts, of doing his own work. That's why the Brad Pitt's character comes in. But I think it...
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, he always had...
He's always had the...
stunt double. It's not because of an accident that he needed a stunt double.
No.
Yes.
No, dude. Are we talking about the same scene?
Yes.
Okay.
This is funny. No, it's part
sure
of that character's makeup. He needs a stuntman. Most people in Hollywood need a stuntman, but no, he didn't stop doing his own stunts because he got hurt. I think what you did was you mistook the opening. So the opening of the show is there's a cheesy,
the interview...
ET person that's
right.
interviewing Rick. So Leonardo DiCaprio plays Rick, the aging actor.
Yes.
And beside him is his stunt double.
Yeah.
And also good friend in life. We'll discuss how good a friend. Played by Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
It's Cliff. I forget what his last name. Cliff Booth.
I think Booth. Yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which those names are hilarious.
Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth.
Yeah, Rick Dalton. So it starts with this ET interviewing them. Interviewing him, and he would, for whatever reason, thought it would be clever to put those together. Now, as the story unfolds, you realize that Cliff has to drive him to his auditions and
pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, and the actual filming because he's had too many DUIs.
Right.
Yeah, but it's not. That's just a
not like the DUIs, but he mentions that he's had that. And I'm pretty sure he mentions it later on in the scene when he's talking to the little girl on set, where he kind of breaks down because he's referring about the book that he's reading, but it's about him. He's talking about himself.
He's talking about himself as an aging actor. He's not talking about himself as a broken down person that can't do his own stunts. That's not. I think it's all right, but you somehow went on some kind of brain thing. Yeah, it's really, it honestly is nothing. There's no part of that in there. But we're going to talk about all these things that he did. But anyway, yeah, he's an aging actor. He's getting fewer and fewer roles. And his roles, he's becoming the bad guy.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a signal. It is a signal that... If you start,
he's transitioning from a leading man
to the side guy, and eventually may lose his career, and so that's part of the main storyline. The other part is the friendship with his
Cliff.
stunt double.
Yeah.
And he's more than a stunt double. He is his good friend.
Mm-hmm.
He's his driver. He's everything, really.
Yeah.
His emotional
Support.
Yeah, which is the comical part. There's a lot of comedy in this. Like, I would almost consider this a comedy.
Yeah.
There's so many humorous aspects to the whole thing. And a lot of Tarantino's, it seems like there's very few films. In fact, I don't know if there is one where there's not a comical element to it. There's always some kind of comedic break at the very least. But this one certainly, there's a lot of, you could almost say, like, that's what I'm going with. I'm saying you could say this is a comedy. But anyway, where do you want to go from there?
Yeah, so that's pretty much the plot. I mean, again, it just follows him as an aging actor coming to terms with where he is in life.
Or not coming to terms with.
Or not coming, struggling to come to terms.
Right. So we already said what the storyline is. Where do you want to go from here?
God damn it, Blaise, don't paste.
What do you want to talk about?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if this is going to lead to anything, but I usually like seeing on screen a movie about filming a movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's a good
It's always cool to be like, think of the setup you have to go to like have a set that's on a set.
Yeah.
I just always find that cool and fun.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And Tarantino's educating the audience, the public, about what actors have to go through. One is, you can become outdated, but the other is what happens offset. There's so many hilarious scenes behind that. When the producer comes to talk to him about, it kind of tells him where he is in his career and what he can do for him. But then, like you said, one of the wonderful scenes, which I know we'll talk about, it's one of my favorite scenes, is the actors talking to one another as they're waiting to shoot, and kind of what they learn from one another. And there's a lot of that. But yeah, it's
hilarious because then you're like, that's funny because that's true. Like the actors within the movie who are on set and interacting with one another is like spot on to like.
Yeah, it seems like
certain people's personalities in Hollywood.
No, for sure.
And I think in a way that it's what makes it / a commentary on Tarantino's part.
Yeah. And there's a whole I'm delving into this separately. I'm writing about we need to name the genre of filmmakers being critical of Hollywood. And right now there's not a name for it, so I'm going to come up with my very own term.
Okay.
And talk about this, but there's many, and it seems the most brilliant do it. Yeah. Lynch is one for Shody.
Yeah. Who's the one who
the Coen brothers did it too. The Coen brothers have done it several times.
Yeah. Are they the ones who directed Hail Caesar?
Yes.
Okay, then. Yeah. That's another one.
Absolutely.
That's another really good one. I really enjoyed that one.
Hail Caesar, Mulholland Drive. Yeah, there's several.
Good stuff. But yeah. And then, so there's that. There's his commentary, and of course there's this whole underlining plot, the subplot of the time period that this movie takes place in with Sharon Stone, I believe. Was it Sharon Stone?
No.
Something Stone. I forgot the girl's name.
It's well, now you're making me forget. Damn it!
God damn it, Blaise.
Sharon Tate.
Sharon Tate. Jesus
Thank
Christ.
you, Mike.
Yeah.
Sharon Tate. And that historical figure and how that comes into play.
Yeah.
And it's not, he does it so well. You think it's interwoven. It is actually interwoven, and Cliff plays a bigger part in that kind of subplot than Rick. That he kind of like comes in at the end, and we'll talk about that as well. But he takes that historical time period and historical event,
major threat of Charles Manson.
Yes.
And the ranch.
Yep.
Again, there's a lot of humor in it. And we'll
yes.
talk about that at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah, I laughed out loud.
I
At
think
the
you're
end of
supposed
this,
to. I think he meant
no,
it for you to do
of
it.
course
Yeah.
he is, yeah. But I laughed out loud in the theater, and I was actually worried when I watched the second time on my little crappy computer. I was like, man, I hope it's as funny to me this time as it was, and I laughed just as fucking loud. It's brilliant. We'll
great.
talk about that. But do you want to? Should we talk about maybe just our favorite scenes and why,
Okay.
or? And then I want to talk about the writing at some point as well. But I just thought,
let's go.
to entertain our audience, we should talk about our
Favorite
favorites.
scenes?
So why don't
Yep.
you jump in? What was your favorite scene?
I'm not gonna. Well, I'm gonna call it a segment than a scene
Okay.
because it's the whole segment in the movie, maybe about halfway through, where he is. He got a part on another western where he plays the main bad guy again, and he basically comes on set after drinking all night, I guess, memorizing lines. So he's hungover on the set in the beginning, and it kind of follows him through that day's shoot, and where he kind of has a moment of stumbling and a little bit of forgetting lines, and they take a break. He gets super, aggravated with himself, and then he goes back to his trailer and has a freak out. I like that. That's a really good part. But as a whole, I love that segment where he's shooting that pilot. And again, it comes into play with interacting with the young actress on set.
Yes.
And as well as with Timothy Oliphant's character, who he plays like the new leading man on the scene that they're trying to prop up. So he's, acting alongside him. But that entire segment on that set, all those scenes together, was probably my favorite part of the movie, including the end. So that part. But
no, I love the same. There's so many things to say about all of it, including the fact that, and again, I think Tarantino is educating the audience on what actors have to go through, and one of the he's given us insight into the old timers, but how people still do it. But there's wonderful scenes where he's showing, I don't want to say humanity, but the humanity of each of these characters and what they have to go through, and kind of the I don't want to say struggle, but the difficulties and the work put into it. Because even though Leonardo's character, even though he's a aging actor, to show him studying his lines, there's also a lot of professional aspect to him. The fact that he has taken the time himself. It's not someone else that did it. But what he did, he has this little recorder that he takes around. It's an old 70s reel to reel, and he plays he plays all the characters in his taping, and it's in his voice, or he tries to put accents in there, and that's funny too, because you can tell there's a little bit of racism when he's doing the
stereotypical character
Mexican
voices,
accents and stuff. So he has all those taped and recorded, and then his parts are blank. It's like dead air, and that's how he practices. So he plays these tapes over and over again, and now that he's mixing himself margaritas or drinks, so he gets drunk to rehearse, which is not a good way of doing this. No. But he's done all the work before that by recording it all and doing that, and then so he's not like a lazy actor that doesn't give a shit about what he's doing.
Right.
And that it makes us care for that character too. And then he shows up
hungover.
Go into a little more detail about the self-deprecation after he fucks up, his lines.
Yeah, so he has a couple moments on set where he asks for lines, and then they call cut. And the professionalism comes into aspect where he starts hating himself for having drunk that much, being hungover, and then dropping lines, because we never really... No, we do. We have people praising him in terms of not his current situation, but people have acknowledged his career in the past. So in a way, what's the best way maybe ego comes into play. He holds himself to high standards.
Yeah.
Again, professionalism, ego.
Right.
I mean, as an actor, you have both. And so he has this freak out in his trailer, and he's talking to himself, trying to hype himself up.
Yeah, I'm actually.
You have it pulled up right on your screen.
So I'm gonna play it, but you're right in what you're saying. He is a respected actor. He's not. There's not non-respect for him,
right?
And the producer that convinces him to do spaghetti westerns, which I thought was also a cool element of this.
Oh, wow.
That you have this actor who's used to doing all these shows and films, and he is the lead guy, but now he's getting fewer and fewer roles, and he's playing the bad guy. So this one producer recognizes it and loves his work, but also has his stick of he represents the spaghetti westerns. So this is a branch for his career that you could either look at as it's not good or right. But anyway, the producer compliments him, the other actors do, etc. And he's questioning himself and his own ability. But you're right. It's not the ego that's like, I'm the greatest and I should have all the great. He's questioning himself as he is. He's emotionally immature, which is hilarious. Yeah. That's the funny part. And he needs Cliff to kind of beef him up. And then, these are some of my favorite scenes. And he's going through a lot before he gets to that big scene where he's matched up against Timothy Olyphant. And what was really cool was, I think Olyphant's a better actor than Leonardo DiCaprio.
Really?
Myself.
I really here did. Or in general?
It was like in general.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. So to me, what I liked was this is art mimicking, or mirroring reality to a certain degree. And I wonder if Tarantino, what was going through Tarantino's mind of this, but regardless, that doesn't matter too much. It's just fun to talk about. But it's so cool, and these are this is an aspect that shows Tarantino's ability as a writer. One of the things that Tarantino does over and over again is he's not, how do I say this? He's not a guy he does all the elements, like establish character. Mm-hmm. And the way he established character, I want to talk about that too. It's cool as hell. He establishes who the characters are, and then he develops them. But the way Tarantino does it is he pits character against character, which doesn't always mean enemy. Mm-hmm. It just means I'm going to put this character in this situation with this guy. I'm going to put this character in this situation with this girl. So for this film, he's with a younger actress. She's 8 years old. And so he's like, I'm going to put these two characters together and see how they move off of each other. And he's said in interviews that that's how he comes up with situations that he loves to write about. He's thinking in his head, what obstacle or what incident can I create for this character? And he always likes to have characters going at it, which again doesn't always mean like enemies. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in this, he's had the moment with the producer and he's realizing, do I do this? Do I not? And then he has the scene with the little girl, which we'll talk about in detail. And she kind of dresses him down and tells him, and also embarrasses him. And this is before they're doing their shot. Yeah. And she's more of a professional than he is. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about it because we don't want to go off. But she's also, kind of a know-it-all. Yeah. But she's clearly doing things and taking this a little more seriously than he is to a certain degree. But so he went through that. And so it's another thing that's elevating the tension of, oh my God, maybe I don't have my shit together. Maybe I am washed up. And then he's in the scene with Timothy Olyphant. And I just love that he's in that interaction and he's fucking up his lines, like you said, because he drank too much while he was rehearsing. And he is an alcoholic. He crashed his car and that's why he has to have Cliff driving around and shit like that. So then he's in that scene and he starts missing his lines, and you see the build up. He gets more and more angry, and he's getting more and more embarrassed. And they're not necessarily. I don't remember.
Well,
do they criticize him for not? They don't seem to.
No. You don't see it. At least we're not told. We don't know. He thinks they are for sure.
Does he say it?
No, but you can tell. Or maybe that's me coming
could be.
as an actor. I feel like he is definitely harder on himself than anyone, but I think he also feels like, other people will be, thinking the same thing that he is. And I love that scene where he, finally he's messing up and he turns to the director or the producer. He's like, "Can we cut?" He's like, "No, we can't cut." He's just like, "Oh, come on, let's." That freak out. He's like, "God, please, God."
It gets worse.
It's great.
So
great.
he goes through all this, and then I'm just gonna play it. Hopefully, it's loud enough. And then he goes into his trailer and freaks out. And we're just gonna play this. I don't care if we're.
Well, we're not showing the video, right?
We're no.
Damn it, Rick. Fucking lines, embarrass yourself like that in front of all those goddamn people. Well, you were drinking all night. Fucking drinking again, 8 goddamn fucking whiskey sours.
So we're seeing this, and we got these flip clips.
Drunk. You fucking remembering your
so he just snaps to the next scene.
Practiced them and now I don't look like I goddamn practiced them. You're sitting there like a fucking baboon. 8 fucking whiskey sours. I couldn't stop at fucking 3 or 4, right?
And then he drinks again while in the trailer.
Drink too much, huh? Every fucking night. That's it. That's fucking it. You stop drinking right now. All right? Make a promise to yourself you're going to stop fucking drinking.
And he's talking to himself in the mirror.
And then he grabs his head.
So he has a meltdown, and that's such a cool scene.
Again, it's dramatic but comedy at the same time.
It is. And it's developing the character because it shows that he's self-deprecating. It shows that he cares, but it also shows that he's emotionally fucked up.
Yeah.
And I just love it. Tarantino does so much of that, of these moments, and he does it in a lot of his films, but for this one, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he's showing you what happens with actors and what they go through and probably how they deal with themselves, and probably he's witnessed these actors do it.
I'm sure.
And continues to develop the character and entertains us while he does it. And then let's go ahead and we might as well just talk about the scene between the little girl actors. While he's waiting on set, he goes in the back alley, and it's a Western setup. Yeah. So he's just kind of wandering around, and he sees this little girl sitting in her, not her actor's chair.
Yeah.
And there's another chair next to her, and he sits down next to her. And you want to jump in there? Or?
I was like, pop an M&M in my mouth. Yeah.
Well, she's reading a book, and he's got a book himself, which again is telling of the character. He's reading a Western, and it's kind of a pulp Western is what he's reading. And she's reading a book too, and he knows this, so he comes up and he's like, "Oh, I'm the older actor. I'm going to be real kind to this girl," and kind of like, I'll mentor her or whatever. And she is a precocious, intelligent little, at times snot, but she's not just a brat. And she's reading the biography of Walt Disney. So it's hilarious that this is Tarantino. Let's juxtapose one actor with another, two characters, and see what they can learn from one another.
Well, she's kind of like a foil to him. Because he's like the, again, aging actor. She's like the up-and-coming young actress.
Right.
So it's like you see the juxtaposition between, somebody who's new and like wants to do well and is always professional and somebody who's done it for years.
Yeah.
And it's kind of on a downward slope or, questioning himself.
Right.
And stuff like that. So, yeah.
And he calls her by her name, and she's
like, I prefer not to go by names. I prefer to go by my character name.
I'm staying in character, and I've done it before. And she tells him her methods, and they're different than what he's used to, which is so cool. She really is teaching him something, which also scares him. It scares him because he hasn't this is an actor that's depended upon and done the same kind of rehearsal or practice. He hasn't challenged himself or pushed himself to try other methods and things. And she's talking about, well, I did it this way and it didn't work, and this is why I stay in character. And so you see on his face as the discussion continues, like it starts to drop. And then so they're reading their books, and he says, do you mind if I sit down? And she's like, I don't mind as long as you're not going to kind of interrupt. I want to stay in character. And so he sits down and he's like hemming and hawing and making noise. And that's everything that she doesn't want, but she allows
clearing his throat.
He clears his throat and he
shit.
lights up the cigarette. So he's making all this noise. But then they have this discussion about what they're reading.
Right.
And then she asks him, what are you reading
what are you
about?
reading?
And he's like,
Yeah.
And he's reading about the very character that he is right now. And he's reading about a cowboy that tames broncos. I forget what what was that? I forget what they called the
character in the book.
The character in the book.
Oh gosh, I can't remember that.
It's all right. It's something to do with bronco. And as he describes to the girl the storyline, he says he used to be young, and he was quicker. And now he's aging. He's got an injury, and so he just doesn't know. He's questioning himself, and he doesn't know. And so as he's telling her the storyline, he's realizing, oh my God, this is me. And he breaks down, which is such a cool moment. He breaks down, and starts crying in front of the girl, and she is not just a brat because she comes up to him and like comforts him.
Yeah.
And they have that moment, and it's really cool, that whole discussion. I don't know if you want to talk more about it, but that's so he goes through that before they actually film, and he's up against Timothy Oliphant, who is a really good actor in the film too. And he starts fucking up his lines in front of all these people. And so he had that moment with the girl first.
Right.
And he was already questioning it. And so that just it just hurts him. And they take a break, and he goes into his trailer and starts cussing and swearing. And the part that we already played.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, and then, so the writing, the moments. So here's Tarantino. Okay, I'm going to put this aging actor with this young actress who's got her shit together, who's working as a professional, and she shows him this stuff. She also shows kindness. And then I'm going to put him against Timothy Oliphant, who is a up-and-coming actor who really knows his shit and respects Leonardo's character, but also is like watching to see how he does things. And all those moments where he's with another character, it further develops this character. And one of the things that I always teach in script writing and writing in general, you establish the character. Tarantino did it brilliantly with the opening with him and Brad Pitt. Here's my stuntman, and he's acting all cocky and whatever. And then the very next scene is he starts to break down and question himself. And Cliff, his stuntman, has to build his ego back up to get him ready to decide if he's going to do spaghetti westerns, etc. And then simultaneously, we establish Brad Pitt, and this is also one of my favorite scenes in the film, is when Brad Pitt drops off Rick. What's Rick's last name, the character?
Dalton.
Rick Dalton. So Cliff drops off Rick Dalton, who's Leonardo, and there's this hilarious shot where he's pulling in the driveway to take him home, and he had already cried. And in the driveway is the giant poster of himself, Rick, in an old Western, which is hilarious in itself, and that is kind of an ego thing. And then he's like, so you feeling better now? And then he leaves, and then we see we see Cliff, Brad Pitt, driving around Hollywood, leaving the nice Hollywood Hills to go to his house, which is
not even a house.
Fucking trailer.
Yeah.
It's a trailer on the backside of
drive-in
movie theater, which there's a lot of Tarantino history with that as well. And we see him feeding his dog, and they do a series of close-ups. And so we get a close of the dog food can. He opens the cupboard, and there's these dog food cans. And you see him thinking, what does my dog want today? So he's reaching, and then he hesitates, and he goes to pull another one. And that's really telling of character. It's establishing who he is. And so he opens that up, and then they do a close of his stove, which has got a grease-filled skillet and an old pot of spaghetti, the little curly pasta. He puts the grease. I think he puts some of the grease on the dog's food.
He does.
But anyway, they do a close-up of the pan. Then they do a close-up of him dropping the gross-ass log of dog food out.
It's gross.
And all these little close-ups, and then Brad Pitt or Cliff talking to his dog. And that's so wonderful. Again, juxtaposition. Here's the actor that was established and has the Hollywood Hill home and all the money, and yet he's the guy that builds him up,
breaking down,
leaves, and goes to his
shitty little trailer,
and then he loves his dog. And,
yes.
So we get to know that character again. Brilliant. Establishes character. Then let's juxtaposes them. So we juxtapose them. So not only are we establishing each character, we're developing the characters by showing their differences. And then he continues it with the challenges that each individual, each character brings to the other character. And it's just, nobody's better than Tarantino at that. Sure, there's people that equal it, but it's a testament to his ability as a writer. It's wonderful. He doesn't focus too much on an actual climax. There are climaxes in films. His main thing is character juxtaposed against character, and how can I develop these through the differences and also their interactions.
That's why I told you when we spoke over the phone is that's why I thought this was like one of his tamest films. It's more of the like social commentary and the whole life of an actor and stuff like that.
Right.
It's not your typical what you would expect from Tarantino. I think that most people would envision until like you get to the very end, which is only like a couple of minutes long.
What you're saying is there's not the amount of violence in this film that we've seen in a lot of his other violence. And by the way, people that always harp on too much violence, etc. There's violence in the world, so deal with it. It happens. And he's doing it partly humorously and partly entertainment. But you're right. This film is more developing the characters.
Yeah, more character-driven.
Through their interactions and less of the tense action. Action that has a lot of tension to it and a lot of build-up and excitement. There's just as much tension in this. It's just a different kind of tension. It's like a slow burn tension. It's like, what's going to happen with this aging actor? Is he going to pull through? What's going to happen to, I keep wanting to say sidekick, but his stuntman and friend. And as they weave their way through this, and all the while, we have the elements, the thread of the Manson.
The Manson.
Killer Manson.
The Manson killer. Manson,
Charles Manson,
cult.
and I love that he didn't focus on Manson. He did not focus on Manson.
Not at all.
We see him a couple times, but
I
that's
thought it was
it.
only like once.
It may have only been once.
Like the actual character, I think you see him only once in one scene, but he's referred to throughout the film.
And it's hilarious because he's going to Sharon Tate's house.
Yeah. Looking for somebody else,
and they check each other out, and then he's looking for. So that's partly history, the history of what actually happened with Manson, but twisted with Tarantino's own because he was hoping to get a recording contract, and I don't think he ever went to. He didn't actually go to Tate's house for that recording or whatever. So Tarantino kind of twisted that a little bit to do that, but which was interesting. And then I feel like I'm bogarting. What do you want? Do you want to talk about the Manson thread?
Oh, we can, but let's
Manson,
the Manson thread.
Yeah.
No, let's talk. I want to talk about I guess Cliff a little bit. We spent so much time talking about Rick's character.
Absolutely.
Cliff, played by Brad Pitt.
Well, I
It's
did
interesting you
just
say
talk.
that.
I said he got established well, and he juxtaposed him.
Yeah, but like his whole thread as a character, you can't
Yeah,
hear that.
it's actually picking up more. I don't know
Really?
if it's the new program, but it absolutely is. But that's cool. Go.
It's weird. Relatively speaking, he doesn't get as much lines, I don't think, as Rick in the movie. But like I said, they do a very good job of establishing who he is.
He gets as much film time,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
you're right.
but not as much like speaking.
He's not, and he's not as vocal. He's
Yeah.
not. Well, he's not acting, but yeah, he's.
But I think that's also part of his character. He's not a very
absolutely. Yeah, he's
vocal
more,
guy.
yeah.
And it's funny. I like his thread is interesting because as much as he's his support for Rick, you can kind of see he himself is struggling because then they come to a part in the movie where he is honest with Rick, and I think it's after he has a talk with that producer. They have a talk with the producer about the spaghetti westerns and stuff like that over in Italy. He comes out and he tells Rick, he's like, he hasn't had a job in months himself as a stuntman. And they refer to, I believe it's an incident. Well, we find out why.
Yes.
We found out why. But you see himself.
Let's not tell why. Just in case someone hasn't seen this.
Okay.
Unless you want to. If you feel it's important to do it.
Well, it's funny because there's... Okay, well, let me say this first about him. Is like, we find out as much as he is all this... basically like life support for Rick.
Yes.
He himself is also struggling. Not on a major case, but you feel for him. It's like, oh, he's taking care of Rick all the time, but he himself is kind of struggling. He's not getting work.
I feel for him because I don't think Rick is as good a friend to him as he is
Rick
him.
isn't as appreciative.
But I don't
of him
think
as,
that character gives a crap about the struggle. Like, he's accepted the struggle, and he's definitely emotionally more mature.
Yeah.
But he's okay.
Yeah.
This is part of his, like, just what I'm doing.
Well, they
he's
mentioned
okay. He's a tough man.
He's a war
and he can,
veteran.
Yeah, and he can handle it, and so he's a different personality. But I don't feel like he financially.
Well, yeah,
he's not nearly a set, but I don't think he gives a shit. I don't think he cares. There's nothing in the film that indicates that he would want more, and that's why I love that character. And it's another difference. Here we are juxtaposed to Leonardo wants. There's the protagonist. He has the desire to not, become unrecognizable or to go down in history in a bad way. And Brad Pitt he has very little desire. He's set and happy. I would almost say, I don't want to say happy, but and one of my favorite scenes thank you, in the film is Brad Pitt on the rooftop fixing the antenna, the TV antenna. So this is the cool thing. And I know I interrupted Ray, so we'll go back to what you were talking about, the stuntman, which is another great frickin' scene where he's in the back alley with the other stuntmen, one of which is no other than Bruce Lee. But before that, and it leads into this, Rick, the struggling actor or the aging actor, tells Brad Pitt, Cliff, his buddy, he's like, he's like, Brad's like asking, when do you want me to pick you up, and when do you do this, and he asks, asking for the job, and then Rick says, yeah, in the meantime, I need my antenna fixed. So he's still like a chore boy to him, And then so we see the next shot, Brad Pitt's climbing up, and he doesn't climb up. The way he hops up on the roof is also telling he's like real physically capable dude. He jumps up on a fence and then jumps up on the gutter and then jumps up on the roof, and there he is. And he takes his shirt off and he's up on top of the roof. And I love that Tarantino thought of this moment of writing a character on top of a roof, looking over the Hollywood Hills, and taking in kind of the moment. And his questioning is, he's thinking of the times during the day, and so you hear a voiceover of Rick, his friend, saying and complaining about certain things, and so it's kind of his analysis of, he's analyzing the day, right? And he's dealing with the things that he's gone through. And what's so cool about that is he deals with things completely different than Rick, Leonardo, the aging actor. He goes in his trailer and kicks things around and gets all upset, and it's just near a breakdown. And Cliff is up on the roof, for his little chore boy job, and he just goes through the moments. And then so we jump from that to him in the back alley with the other stunt boys, and we come back to, so it's like a flashback, and then back to real time, where he says, yeah, that makes sense, I should have been fired. So he's going over the scene, and he gets fired, and he's like, yeah, I should have been fired. But so there's a guy that's he's got his shit together as far as like emotions, and he's content, and he questions things, but he's not gonna flail out. He's not gonna deny his own flaws. He's gonna admit them. Whereas Rick has a much more difficult time, admitting what he's done wrong, even though he yells and screams about it. But he just doesn't handle it the same way that Brave. And I just fucking love that. I loved it on the rooftop. I love those moments like that. So I interrupted you.
That was a great scene. That flashback. We find out the reason for him not really getting jobs anymore is that whole incident. Well, actually, no. It's part of it. Part of an incident, and then the other part is an anecdote about his wife. Do you want to? I don't know if you want to talk about it. It's a very quick snippet about.
Right, but the reason I don't want to ruin it, because there's also a novel version of this that Tarantino wrote, and it is different than the actual film. And he goes into detail about, did he do it or did he not do it? Because it's not clear in the film that he did.
It sets it up.
So I don't know if we should or not, but at least talk about that brilliant scene with Kurt Russell.
Oh yeah. So Kurt Russell plays like the handler for the extras alongside. Like he does it for one set, and his wife Kurt is the other handler on set.
I don't know.
Or a producer, I think.
Maybe on set. Something, but I don't know what.
And this is in the flashback, and basically, they set him up, even though they're reluctant about this because of the story of his wife. So Kurt Russell's wife feels uncomfortable around Cliff for that reason.
Right.
But he agrees. He's like, okay, we'll do it. And he's like, and he just tells Cliff, but just stay away from my wife.
Yeah.
And
but before that, so Kurt Russell's character, the stuntman handler, the guy that takes care of that, has a conversation with Rick. And Rick is trying to convince him
to take Cliff on.
To take Cliff on. Yeah. And then he hems and haws, and he's like, well, I don't know. And then Rick stands up, tries to get him for it. But then it's hilarious. He's like, Kurt Russell says, why? He's like, you know what? I just don't think he fits in, and in fact, the guy creeps me out, and I just don't want him around. Yeah. And he tells him why, and then Rick stands up and says, "Hey, you got me there, but he looks like me, whereas these other guys don't. So you need to at least try to put him in here." He's like, "I wouldn't push," and then he says that hilarious moment where Rick, his friend, says, "I don't care. Drop a house on him, have him get hit by a Lincoln." He's like, beat the shit out of him, but give him this job. Yeah. Which is kind of telling of that character too, and again, developing. And then he goes out into I want to say the back alley, but it's like a bunch of the stuntmen are sitting around.
Yeah, they're just waiting,
talking.
I guess.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
so
chilling and waiting. And I guess considered the controversial scene of the movie with that's where Bruce Lee's character is, and he's giving.
Why do you say controversial? Because people are arguing.
Well, people were like, maybe not people, but I know in that
No, I think you're
interview
right.
with Tarantino, was talking about that scene. It was Bruce Lee's daughter or a
Yes,
family member was not
absolutely.
happy with that scene.
Yeah.
Um,
Another reason why I fucking love Tarantino. Because he's not afraid in this day and age with whatever way you want to say it, politically correct or the kind of, I want to say attack culture is the way I see it. And Tarantino would rather have a great story and first of all, he's story first. And he's also kind of, letting us know in the history. And you don't necessarily know if it's true or not, although we do know because in an interview, at least Tarantino's version of this. But Tarantino's not afraid to put those things in his film, first of all, knowing that there might be some kind of controversy. So he puts Bruce Lee in a bad light, which Ray is going to describe to you. But he's not going to take that out of the film because it's going to cause an uproar. He's going to put it in the film because it enhances the film. And it's such a great moment to see Bruce Lee get his ass kicked. You tell him how.
So he's sitting there. He's giving some sort of like philosophical speech about fighting.
Right, he's showing off. So all the stuntmen are gathered around. Yeah. He's showing off, and he's going, "Oh!"
Well, he's like giving this like speech about like what it is to like be a real fighter, and not just like doing the stunt stuff, like fake fighting for films. And then he brings up, or somebody asks him about fighting some kind of historical, maybe a boxer or some kind of fighter. I don't remember the figure's name. Don't fucking blame me for it. I don't care.
Oh my god, are you serious? Do you know who the boxer is?
No idea.
Well, he says Cassius Clay. Do you know who Cassius Clay is?
I've heard the name.
You know what? Don't let Ray fool you, audience. This is one of the fucking reasons we're doing this podcast, because Blaise is going to educate Ray in history, and Ray is a phenomenal actor.
I'm also not American,
push this fucker, and I'm going to make him a better actor by learning history and watching all these films. But Ray does it anyway. But Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali.
Okay.
Okay. Oh my God. So
he's the guy with the boxing thing.
Cassius Clay is his real name. His real name. I shouldn't say that. Cassius Clay was his given name. And he changed his name to Muhammad Ali.
I didn't know that.
Because of his religion, he did. But they used Cassius Clay because he was still Cassius Clay during the time of the film.
Okay.
But Ray is saying he...
somebody asks Bruce Lee who would win between him...
But before that, it is cool that Bruce Lee talks about... He praises...
He does.
He praises Cassius Clay because he says, this is combat. We're man versus man, and you could die in that fucking ring, and I love that too. It's a whole thing I love.
Yeah, so it's a bit like ego on his part, but also like showing respect.
Yeah.
So
they show that he is a master, and that's what gets me. Tarantino's not saying Bruce Lee.
Yeah, he's not shitting on Bruce Lee. No, I don't think he is.
He's not. And then continue. So
actually, I want to continue on this point. It's interesting because I didn't live. I wasn't alive during the time of Bruce Lee, and I feel like there's very rare actual footage of Bruce Lee, aside from his movies, sure, but like actual
I don't think
combat stuff that he's done, it's not a lot.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe the mindset of Tarantino is like, well, let's take this historical figure who he earned his place of where he is. He's not denying that, but he's saying like, was he always like? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel there was a point maybe he was taken down at some, like, we don't know.
Yes,
this is a maybe know. Like...
Absolutely.
Maybe it did, maybe it didn't.
And Tarantino does a bunch of these in this film where he's just speculating, but he's a writer.
Yeah.
And he's writing these cool little snippets of, what an actor might do behind the scenes, what he might do when he sees another actor that's better than him.
Yeah.
And also... the famous storylines that we do know. Yeah. Even Charles Manson. Even Charles Manson. He's imagining what like that ranch was and these things that happened, and we don't know exactly. And so this is part of Tarantino's imagination saying, I'm gonna make up this story. Part of it probably there. I think there might be some, but he's he doesn't know that actually the stuntmen were all standing around and then this kind of thing happened. Although he may have been talking shit, somebody may have told him that he was talking shit about Cassius Clay and that he could have beaten him in a...
Well, so we have this historical figure. We have Tarantino doing like a what if scenario, which is interesting because I don't know if he ever talked about this. We have Bruce Lee amongst these like the stuntmen, but it's like, would Bruce Lee ever have been around stuntmen on breaks? You know what I mean? That's like another thing I thought. I'm like, is like,
I bet he would.
A leading dude, which is adding more like a grounded aspect to him.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know. I was not alive during the time.
I've been on
can't verify
professional movie sets, and I can tell you this: everybody mixes with everybody. It is like
there's this whole stigma about like
food court and like
the whole like thing about like the leading actors, they don't like really mingle with everyone, and I've witnessed it on most sets that I've been on. They don't really like. They kind of keep them.
It's both. But
I think
part of it
depends on the character. Depends on the person who you are.
It's being professional, and maybe they're like trying to keep their mindset, and they're thinking, and there's got to be nerves too. I mean, Jesus Christ, I know. Just us, I'm nervous before doing a scene for sure, and I have to do things to like focus on what it is I'm trying to do before you actually get in the moment. Which I want to talk about that someday, like how I think the moment is a character in itself. I told you that once, and we kind of talked about it. We'll talk about that again. But yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, anyway, we have Bruce Lee kind of giving a philosophical speech about real fighting and kind of showing respect, and then the stuntman asks him about taking on Cassius Clay, and then he says, I think basically it boils down to says he would, in the end, he would win.
Yes.
And then that's when Cliff laughs.
Cliff says, "Wait a minute."
Yeah.
It is cocky.
Yeah.
It's like, I love Brad Pitt in this because it's a dude. He's a freaking man on film. You know what I mean? And he can play that man. It's like Paul Thomas Anderson was talking about this and how we're losing, or there's so few dudes that can actually play like a man, and they are fucking men, which means they're not little wimpy, I don't know, emotional basket cases, or playing to the popular whim or whatever the hell it is. And he just chuckles and he's like, "Wait a minute. So you're saying that in a fight you would beat Cassius Clay?" And that is just how it starts. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then basically, and then Bruce Lee kind of comes back at him, saying, well, I forget exactly what his response was, but it boils down to him agreeing to do like a...
Well, he does say, "Who are you?" And "Who are you?"
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then they go back and forth a little
bit. Have a little back and forth, and that builds up to, I think Cliff instigates it, or no. Bruce Lee does. He says a friendly contest.
Yes.
To like spar, like a gentle spar.
Right.
And that's when he does the whole like Bruce Lee-isms.
Yeah,
and
he's kind of warm up, and he's
Oh.
And it's real martial arts. It's not like
it's not making it up.
But he is making a show of it. He's kind of puffing himself up. It's like a, he's kind of like one of those birds that puffs him up.
Yeah,
not a peacock, but like a blowfish. And go ahead.
Yeah, and then he so the first round, or like the first, I'll call it a round. First round, he like chest side kicks Cliff in the chest and he knocks him down.
Knocks him on his ass. Yeah. Cliff gets back
and
up.
He gets back up. Yeah. And then the second time, I think it's only twice, right?
Yeah.
And the second time, he does it again, same
Well,
move.
there is combat going on, so they're matching. So So Bruce Lee is seeing, oh, this guy is capable because he's blocking his shots. And Bruce Lee is fully capable too, blocking shit. And so that's really cool. Well orchestrated. That was fucking brilliant.
That was awesome.
Good.
So after like the actual like hand-to-hand stuff, he sets him up for another like sidekick. And that's when Bruce Lee jumps, Cliff takes him, grabs him, and just like tosses him into the fucking car.
And whose car is it?
And it ends up being Kurt Russell's wife's car.
Who already hates him.
So, yeah.
And they come out and they see poor little Bruce Lee. It's not poor little Bruce Lee because Bruce Lee's tough. You know,
he got back up.
He gets back up. And she's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, you're fighting Bruce Lee? Like, and she's probably working on that film with Bruce Lee.
Yes.
And then she sees her car, and then we cut back to the rooftop.
And that's like, that's
so
when
he's
Cliff
a man.
realizes
He's going through the moments of the day, and he goes, "Yeah, I should have been fired." with this grin, it's fucking.
It's great. It's great.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And then he is the one. Then is
I need to join you on a beer. You keep talking. Do you want another beer?
Yeah. All right. Beer. Are these twist offs? No, these are not twist offs.
You're supposed to be talking about the film.
Well, you're talking in the background. I can't.
We
can't be overlapping.
Entertaining the audience.
All right. Well, he's trying to do that. So the whole point of the other aspect of Cliff's storyline is he comes across the hippies from Charles Manson's cult. Let's call it what it is. His ranch. And the way that happens is while he was driving Rick back one day to do a quick shot of these girls crossing the sidewalk as they're at a red light.
It's a buckhorn.
Yes. And he makes eye contact with one of the girls. And you're like, oh, they're setting up a little like attraction thing. And then he comes across her a couple more times. And I think the third time Cliff comes across her, he's, I think, in Rick's car again. Yes, in Rick's car. And she's by herself and she's hitchhiking.
Keep going.
Well, I can't talk over the sound of you peeing.
They can see it, dumbass. By the way, I'm drinking Streetside, one of my favorite breweries in Cincinnati, out of a Listerman's glass, another one of my favorites. John Lemon. It's an awesome New England. It's got lemon in it, and the little walruses are shaped like hops. But Streetside Brewery, support your breweries. Great little local brewery here in town, which my new production facility where we'll be filming out of, hopefully, if all goes well, it's going to be right across the fucking street from Streetside Brewery. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Always be. Anyway, so he comes across her the third time. She's hitchhiking back to their ranch, and Cliff is finally headed in the same direction. And so he stops, he pulls over, and he asks her where she's going.
Time out. Time out. I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to interrupt. Another cool aspect. Quit it. Get your hands up. Can you sit off
These
the
are
table?
my elbows, sir.
Can you sit off like me? Jesus Christ.
I talk with my hands.
Well, I know, but I know that this picks up the recording, so I keep my fucking hands off the table. Another, I guess, showcase that shows Tarantino's talent is that he's beautifully threaded these kind of moments where he sees this girl. So the first time he sees her, she's dancing in the street and she's hitchhiking.
They're like singing this weird culty song, and they're collecting garbage.
And he sees him, and he's like, all right. And he's attracted. She's a very attractive girl. And then she asks him for a ride, and then he sees her again. But Tarantino brilliantly threaded this girl throughout the film. And then, like you said, he doesn't take her the two times that he's not going, which, again, is telling of character. He's like, he's not going to, like, just pick up a girl to take her where she wants to go. He still does his things that he's going to do. Yeah. The only time he gives her a ride is when he's heading in the
same direction that she was going.
She is, yeah.
And so he asks her, where she's going. She tells him, I forgot the name of the ranch, but it's a ranch that Rick and Cliff used to shoot westerns at.
Yep.
Before it closed down, I guess. And he agrees to take her, and she. This is a great moment where, again, like you said,
they're flirting.
They're flirting, and then she's just like, she basically is like, you want me to give you a blowjob while you're driving? And there's that great moment of like, Cliff being, can I see some ID? Because he's like, he'll flirt, but he's like smart enough to not just hook up with any chick
telling
that he
a
picks up.
character and a guy that's got his shit together. He's not going to take advantage of somebody that's too young, and he knows that she's young. He's like, but I'm not gonna mess around with a teenager.
Yeah. So he ends up taking her to the ranch where they used to shoot, and it's like abandoned now. It's run down. All these.
It's not abandoned.
All these
it's like a hippie colony
convent or whatever the word is. But it's run down. They're not maintaining it.
No, by any means.
It looks like shit, and
which is another Tarantino. Like he's ripping on that era and the bad side of hippies. Yeah.
But you can, Cliff is instantly catches on that something's not right, and because like we said, he used to work there. He used to be on Spawn Movie Ranch. Anyway, he catches on something ain't right. All these hippies are coming out of the woodworks, and he's like, that's fucking weird. And so he asks to meet the owner of the ranch, whom they were friends with.
Yep.
And
he worked with it one time.
And yes, they used to work with him on that ranch. And so he goes up to like eventually he gets introduced to a couple of the other girls there. And you see a couple of them, or maybe just one was like also pregnant that comes out to meet him. And eventually he makes his way up to like the main house, and like 7 more hippies just come out of it. And then he meets like Red, I think they call her Red, which is Dakota Fanning.
Yeah.
Which she like disappeared for years, I feel like, and then like she just like popped up in this movie, and I was like, oh shit, that was Dakota Fanning. Anyway, she kind of plays. She's like the one in charge temporarily.
Yeah, so this is a whole build up. This is you definitely have the sense of danger. Like,
yes.
This is Brad Pitt pulls up. He immediately sees all these hippies, and it's kind of like a Children of the Corn moment.
Yeah.
Because they're there and then they're gone, and it's just not right. And so the tension is building and building and building. And he asks, he wants to see his old friend. Yeah. That he knew lived there, and he asks, "Is he still here?" And they're like, "Yeah, he's here." But they're very kind of mysterious about it, and they're kind of like standoffish about talking about the guy that owns the ranch.
I think what really helps this scene even further is you can watch it as a maybe person without historical context and get that feeling, but I think it adds a layer to it, knowing who runs the ranch now. And they don't say his full name. They always call him Charlie. Yeah. But like if you know the whole story behind that, and you're like, oh shit, this is like a fucking cult of like weird.
Again, it's fucking brilliant writing. Tarantino doesn't get enough credit for what he does. Who else would have made this film and not like we would have seen Charles Manson 100 fucking times? You're never gonna get it right. I haven't even drank. Charles Manson. We don't see him. Like, we saw him the one time when he's going up and he's, like, in a good mood, like, trying to get his freaking, music produced. And who would have written it that way? Tarantino writes it that way and kind of eliminates, almost that it's almost probably part of Tarantino's dream is that Charles Manson never fucking existed. Yeah. And so he's not going to give too much credence or moments in the film itself. And again, that's like unique and strong writing, that I'm going to have this moment of tension and you're not going to see him. Like you said, you brilliantly articulated. He's not there, and they're not gonna. It's not a focus. It's a. I'm sorry, you brilliantly articulated. We know the audience knows the history, so we don't have to have. This isn't a film about Charles Manson.
No.
It's a film about. We've already said with the storyline, but it's also showing Hollywood and kind of an end of an era, and it's another one of Tarantino's. It's a fairy tale, and that's what it's. Again, so brilliant. Once upon a time in Hollywood.
That's why
it's a fairy tale, and he wants it to be a fairy. And this is Tarantino's fairy tale, and sort of just like he did in Glorious Bastards. It's a fairy tale for the Jewish people. What they wish they could have fucking done to Hitler and all those asshole, Nazi whatever. They wish they could have put them all in a theater and burned them alive.
Which I think he makes a reference to it in one of Rick's old movies that they reference.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And that's why it's Once Upon a Time is threaded so well, and people don't pay attention to titles as much as they should, but it's a fairy tale of he wished that Charles Manson never existed, never was a part of or got to do what the bad part of hippies did. And so he's kind of eliminating him. But he's also that's great writing because we don't need any more fucking stories about Charles Manson.
Well, what you said last week about you were never really here. He treats you like an adult. So if you know the history, good. It's even better if you know the history.
Intelligent writing teaches their audience intelligently.
So there's a whole tension there, and then again, it's actually alleviated with comedy, because then they're like that girl, the character Red, played by Dakota Fanning, he confronts her, and he's like, "I'm here to see." I forgot the owner of the ranch's original owner name. His name
George Spahn.
George Spahn.
It is the Spahn Ranch.
George Spahn, and he's like,
"Thank you, Mike and Ray."
And she's like, he's asleep. He's taking his nap. We're gonna be watching these TV shows later, so he needs to catch up on his sleep. And and then she's giving all these excuses, but because of the tension within the scene, you're like, oh shit, did they kill the fucking you they killed the owner? Oh shit, this is gonna be dark shit.
And as bad as the ranch looks, we're expecting to see a fucking skeleton or a emaciated, mummified, body.
And so Cliff confronts her, and he's like, one way or another, I'm coming through that door. And so she's like, all right, so she lets him in.
And again, it's a moment where there's fucking, I was scared. I was like, is she gonna shoot him? Is this place booby trapped? What the fuck is he gonna find? What's gonna happen? And there's the character Cliff, and he's like, now, I'm not leaving until I see Spine. So either you're going to open the door and this little screen isn't going to do much to stop me.
Yeah.
But he's handling it that also kind of reminded me of his character in Inglourious Bastards. There's a lot of similarities. They're different characters, but in Inglourious Bastards, he was the captain of that team of Jewish men that were going around and being dropped into places and just obliterating the Nazis. And he's got that same part of his character has that same attitude that captain did. It's we're not here to be kind or to follow in line. We're here to do one thing, and that's to kill Nazis. And so a lot of that kind of, I felt there was a lot of similarities.
They're kind of calm, intensive persona.
This dude is in charge of any given situation and moment, and he does it.
Yeah, and that works, and she lets him in, and they kind of build up the tension, slowly moving going to the room, and you're like, oh shit, what's he gonna find? And then he actually finds the fucking dude.
It turns out it's exactly what everybody, all the hippies had claimed was right there, and he's like, oh, okay.
He's napping, he's blind.
But at first, he's shaking him, and you don't know if the guy's dead, and then he does and played by no other than, I love this fucking actor. Do you know who it is?
I don't actually.
It's Bruce Dern.
Oh.
Yeah, audience should check out Llewellyn Davis if they haven't checked out that scene. Everything that Bruce Dern's done. He's one of those actors that for a long time was like side roles. And Llewellyn Davis, you know, I don't want to say near the end of his career because he's like getting tons of stuff, but you know he's a very elderly man, and that's another thing that fucking Tarantino does that I love, and it's kind of like it's another art mimicking reality. It's sort of a stretch for me to say that, but he brings back aging and kind of actors that have disappeared.
Yeah, so they kind of relieve that whole tension scene with
Bruce
that kind of like
Spawn.
with this George Spawn.
So it's a build up that ends in a.
You're like, oh, okay, good.
He's fucking with us.
But
and that interaction between Brad Pitt and Bruce Dern, I would like to talk to Brad Pitt about like how excited he was to be with Bruce Dern and see what that whole, you know, what that felt like for him. But Bruce Dern is just playing this old guy that's lost his fucking hearing, and all he does is wake up the fuck and watch the old show, the FBI files, which is hilarious.
Which is hilarious because he's blind.
Yeah,
he's blind, and he watches these late night TV shows with Red.
Yeah, and they have these wonderful that interaction is really cool. Again, character meets another character, and we go through this thing. So yeah.
Anyway. That ends, he goes out. But at that time, so at the very end of that scene, when he tries to leave, he was still using Rick's car when he took that girl back to the ranch.
Yeah, and that, like, we don't have to, like, say every single scene. But you can, if you, like, did you love that, or was there some part? Yeah. Yeah, so...
Because you, like, take that, you
he comes out, and there's another fucking hippie that had, like, punched his tire, and he's like, I'm not fucking leaving until you did, and he beats the fuck out of this guy. There's our Tarantino violence that we expect. Beats the piss out of the fucker and says, you're gonna fucking change this tire. And then more tension, because Tex, who is Charles Manson's, like, main guy... is like one of the hippies rides out to him and says, "Oh no, there's trouble," and so there's trouble at the old ranch, Paul. And so he's riding back, and then by the time he gets back,
he's already
Brad Pitt's gone. But that's you want to talk,
and that is actually what's so well done is that sets up the final scene in the movie, which is actually supposed to be the historical Sharon Tate aspect of it.
Yes.
But it's actually set up here at the ranch with Cliff, which it's fun. We'll get to that final scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can talk. I don't think we're gonna completely tell what it is, but let's just tell the audience. This is what you wish
would have happened.
Tarantino does, just like in Inglourious Basterds, what we wish we could have done to Hitler and his band of Nazis. Tarantino does with that bad element and what Charles Manson had set in place to happen, and it's just, I don't know. I don't feel like we should I don't know, unless you.
I don't know. Again, it's even better if you know the historical context for it. Because then you really understand Tarantino's writing and what he's doing with it. If you don't know the historical context behind it, it's still a great fucking scene.
Yeah, it is.
It's still a great little setup that you get with
That's
a payoff.
That's a good point, Ray, because I just assume that everybody has to know what happened with Sharon Tate. And,
I don't think a lot of people do.
That's
scary. I mean, because you know the funny thing is...
Well, there's not a lot of people... Some people don't know who fucking Cassius Clay is, and goddamn Holly.
Again.
Hey, dude, you listen. As a human being, you need to read a biography on that fucker, because here's a dude that was at the peak of his fucking career and gave it up to say, "Fuck the government. I'm not going to be a little pawn in your war." So the Vietnam War was a fucked up war. and he refused to go. And he lost his, like, they fucking put him in prison. And he couldn't fucking box forever. And then, everybody realized, everybody caught up to fucking Muhammad Ali's intelligence. And then he got the fight, and he still was a fucking champion. And he didn't get the fight when he was at his peak. But there was a man that stood up for what, do you get what I'm saying? It's a part of history that we have to know about. We can't miss these parts of history. We just can't. Like, it's unconscionable. And I'm not saying it's your fault, but it kind of makes me sick that wasn't part of your education somewhere, that you didn't learn something about. And also, he's a fellow Kentuckian. Grew up in Louisville.
Louisville?
That's how us Kentucky people say it. Louisville. Pretty cool ass museum down there. I've used him in a couple of stories myself, the whole bicycle. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go fucking look it up and read it. Read up on Muhammad Ali. Just a wonderful dude.
I was going to say that I knew the whole Charles Manson background. I didn't know about Sharon Tate. So that was another thing in Tarantino's interviews that I learned about and who she was. And we didn't really talk about Sharon Tate in this movie.
We don't have to talk about every single one, but you go ahead and say what you want to say about it.
No, I was going to say, in terms of the historical aspect, again, I didn't know who Sharon Tate was. Then I found out, again, through his interviews, who she is and what had happened with
fucking horrible
Manson and all that shit. So yeah, it definitely adds much better.
And Roman Polanski.
Oh fuck yeah!
And that's what's cool is this is also, it is like an education. It's an education of what Hollywood was then. It's an education of an era, and how he pulled off. It's all picking up. How he pulled off, all those shots, like every single thing in there. I mean, he didn't. Take any shortcuts. They're driving around and there's like hundreds of 70s cars and 70s references, and I'm sure people know this has been talked about, but he just lined the streets, and it's not like he's doing any green screen bullshit. He fucking set up everything and like long sections of road in Hollywood, etc. But he's given us a history of that era, that time, and kind of educating and kind of like it's what he fucking does, man. Every film, it's like in Pulp Fiction, how he brought so many genres back that were being lost. He's kind of doing the same thing here in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He's re-educating or like reminding us of this era, and it's just cool. And I'm not like, I don't think every single thing Tarantino does is the most incredible thing in the fucking world. I get why, even Pulp Fiction, that people think or might be like, well, this is too much action and his storytelling is different, but I don't know. There's so many things that Tarantino has done and is doing that we, quite frankly, that we need, and I love it. And part of it is that he has no fear or he refuses. I think he's a courageous dude because, like I said, he's not going to cower or bow to the social whim or what's happening at the time. And Lord knows he's been, people have tried to beat him up about everything from violence to inappropriate material, etc. And, fuck that. There's no inappropriate material. It's gratuitous. If there's too much violence that has nothing to do with story, that's just there to, like, get somebody off on violence, I'm off. I agree. But that's not what he does.
Well, you can tell.
Yeah. And it's like, unless like cursing or even accents are gratuitous, there's nothing wrong with doing it. And same thing with violence, the same thing with taboo material. It exists in the world, and we're not going to evolve if we're not facing our flaws and our fuck ups and everything else. And that's why I love Tarantino, because I love him because he's a great writer. I love him because he's a great filmmaker, and I love him because of that. He's not going to cower to the whatever.
Well, he cares more about his craft than what people on social media have to say.
Yeah,
and given today's like piles of crap that we're getting in the entertainment industry, I good. I'm glad he would rather focus and respect his craft than, like you said, just bow to the social winds.
That's brilliant. Respect the fucking craft. Be courageous. Yeah. Be like Tarantino. And also, he's still fresh with his shot selection. He does skip breaks, like a couple times when he's trashing his trailer.
Oh yeah.
It skips jumps to another. He does that. He does it a couple times. He strikes that low key, that piano key is like dong when Timothy Oliphant says, "Hey, is that a true story that you were supposed to be cast in the Great Escape?" And then piano key goes, "Durr." That was cool with the sound. With a story about Steve McQueen, he put Steve McQueen in there, and then also I love that. So when they're talking about that, he used the actual film of The Great Escape, and flawlessly, maybe not flawlessly, but pretty fucking brilliantly, he's got Leonardo.
Rick,
but Leonardo is in an actual scene of The Great Escape. That was brilliant that he did that, and that he made that choice, and it could not have been easy to take the time and to film it, but for an audience's pleasure, and to see that, do you know what I mean? Like, it made us really feel like it actually happened, that he was passed over because he couldn't fucking act to that ability. I mean, basically, it was like a hick coming into the scene and just didn't fit this film. And so Steve McQueen, a more intelligent actor than Rick, not Leonardo,
which we see Steve McQueen in the movie.
Not the actual Steve McQueen,
not the actual
guy playing,
but a guy playing it. And then
that's cool too.
The party scene at Roman Polanski's house.
Yeah. And one last thing to say about Sharon Tate, you had brought up, and I think I interrupted you. I'm sorry. And one of the cool things I loved was that he shows like kind of empathy for this, like it's lost, like her abilities, and he shows the actual film that she was in, and he shows this character that sees her name up on the movie theater. What do you call that? Come on, this is terrible. Mike, what's the
marquee?
The marquee, thank you. She sees her name and she's like, oh my God, there's my name. That's cool. And then she goes in and she tells the people, hey, I'm in this film. Can I and they take her picture. But there's these cool moments, and she's sitting in the theater seeing her do her craft, which she had to work her ass off and did. And she's kind of got her moment. And I love that he chose to show Sharon Tate, because he humanizes her, which in our history gets lost because it's all focused again on Charles Manson and like the evil and if this doesn't show that Tarantino isn't gratuitous, I don't know what does, because he chose to focus on Sharon Tate and like re-educate an audience on what this skilled actress did and what we lost, then on fucking Charles Manson, which, you know what I mean, was the evil, which you could say it's like violent, like almost a sexual, like how people get so caught up in the deviancy of these killings and things. And he chose to focus on her and like show that she had this wonderful career. And I know I'm like kissing Tarantino's ass, but it's true. Like, the things that I'm saying are true. It's not like I'm making this up or that it doesn't exist. The evidence is there that he did it, I don't know. What do you think?
I completely agree. Sad that we're only going to get one more movie out of him, but that's what the man wants to do. So
I know.
he's fucking
It's
earned it.
kind of cool. It's kind of cool.
It is.
It is kind of cool. But
It's weird to think that he had that plan before he even got to like the level he is.
I don't know. I think he had some kind of like whatever. I don't want to like I think Tarantino said to himself, I don't want to go too long or keep going. And there's a dude, a master of the study of film. He studied fucking film. He watched it. He looked at it. He didn't get a education per se.
Right.
His education was watching it and being excited about it. And I'm sure he made a decision. I don't want to go like some directors or some people that just can't give it up and just keep going. But I don't know that he actually... I would love to call him on this. I don't know if he actually said, I'm only going to create this many films and that's it. As he went on, he definitely did. He's been saying it for the last, I think since the 7th or 8th film. I don't know. Maybe it's longer than that, but he's been saying it for that.
I think it came out around maybe when the Hateful Eight came out. Which is that his 8th film? Is that what Hateful is that?
I've lost track. I don't know if there's any kind, but yeah, I think that's 8.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's around the time word started coming out that he was only going to do 10. But yeah, we can only hope other directors and artists were inspired by that to like.
I don't think we need to hope. I just fucking Tarantino's the shit.
Huh? He's left his mark. That's.
Fuck yeah.
Oh, you want? That's all you can hope for.
I keep thinking about Pulp Fiction when the wolf gets called in. I don't know why. The wolf gets called in and they're like, oh, it's because Tarantino's acting in that film.
Oh, yeah.
You know, in Pulp Fiction, and the wolf's called in to clean it up. And Tarantino's like, my fucking wife! I'm not going to lose my fucking wife! What do you mean? It's like, scream. But that just, I don't know. It's quintessential Quentin.
Yeah.
Quintessential Quentin.
You know what's weird? It's weird that he didn't make a cameo in this one.
Yeah, it's not weird. It's all right. It might show growth. I'm not saying either way, like it matters, like that he had to, or or it's cool that.
I never saw it as an ego thing. I just saw it as like a fun. Oh, it's like a director.
Well, he doesn't do it in Django either.
No, he does.
He does.
He's like that prospector that gets blown up.
Oh yeah, that's
with
right.
the dynamite.
I forgot. Yeah. Yeah,
that was great.
He's pulling the old Hitchcock by doing his little cameos and shit.
Yeah, it's cool.
Fuck yeah, it is. He's just shit. You got anything else you want to?
Nah, man. I think we pretty much covered everything except for the few good parts. Yeah, I know. I mean, I know we don't rate movies, but I'd say like watch it.
Oh,
this is definitely
fuck yeah.
People definitely. I think people definitely need to watch this.
You can't not watch it. In so many ways. He's getting better, and yet I'll still say I don't want to grade his movies. I don't want to say this is better than this one or that one. But there's elements in here that are definitely showing he's evolving. Yeah. He's still evolving. So you gotta cool. Have to see this.
I know it's a 2.5 hour movie, but like it really doesn't feel like that.
No,
long.
It doesn't.
It's so well paced. You flies through it.
Audience, you heard us talking about this, and there's so many storylines or little snips that we didn't talk about that it's just packed full of so. And I was looking at the cast, and there's like, I mean, I think it's like close to 100 fucking people in the cast, and it's you're not going to be bored. You're going to be entertained. Anybody that's wanting to be a writer or a filmmaker, you should watch it. And just anybody who wants to be entertained, it's good stuff for sure.
Yeah.
One thing I was gonna say. So Ray and I have been talking about. Right, I was talking about this in Paul Thomas Anderson. It's that. Well, I talked about it here. The men, like these kind of fading dudes that like you're like
the misogynists.
And when I was a fucking kid, like how many times did you women do this, men do it, where you watched a film and you're like, I want to be like I want to be like him, or I want to be like her, and you emulate and you
Dude, I almost wanted to be an archaeologist because of Indiana Jones.
Yeah, that's right. We talk about that. If you want to go back to one of our prior episodes,
That's one of my childhood
yeah,
movies that I would watch, and it's just like the character is so charismatic, you just get drawn to them.
Yeah.
Those kind of characters it's just, I don't want to say fading away.
I don't think they're fading away. I think they exist. They've been overshadowed, unfortunately, by, I will say, not as good filmmaking.
Oh yeah.
Not as good writing. Some also crappy writing, and a lot of it has to do with the social whim of politically correctness. And so one of the things that I was talking to Ray about the Paul Thomas Anderson and how he's talking about leading men and shit like that. And one of the things we're going to do is we're at least going to show the films of this, what we need more of. And it's like men in film and fucking strong women. I know I said strong women. Yeah. Like there's a South Park fan. I'm not being a part of social whim. I'm gonna highlight.
No.
We're gonna talk about films where women
properly written and acted, strong female characters.
Absolutely, fucking yes, and also men. And men. And Ray and I both love Benicio del Toro. We think he fits in that category. James Brolin, fucking for sure. So many people in the past. I think Paul Newman's one of them, but all these films. That we're gonna do Sicario for sure.
Yeah, dude.
It's one of our.
I love that. I love the first one. I finished the first one. I gotta watch the second one. Yeah, and there's an awesome It's not awesome. It's not actually. It's pretty fucking dark when you think when I explained it. But there's a personal story anecdote I have regarding Sicario and an aspect of it. So can't wait to share that.
All right, I think we're done. I hope we're not. I don't think we've overdone our
we're an hour and 40 minutes.
yeah, whatever.
That's cool, man. That's a great thing though when you have constant things to say about a movie or break it down that way. It's awesome.
Yeah. You want to sign us off?
Sure, man. I'm Ray Jorgov.
Go ahead and say me too.
This is my co-host, Blaise Weller, and we are the Film Dicks. Thank you and good night.
See you next week. Tarantino, come to our show and talk to us.
Let's fucking get him on the show, dude. If we can get him on the show...
Oh, I bet.
I'd piss my pants.
I bet I can.
I'd piss my pants.
I bet you... I'm just going to leave it at that.
Do it.
We might cut this part out, but anyway. See y'all.